Ometeo, Tlasokamati at Eheka Tlali Tle, Tlasoteo, Kotlique, Chachi Witlique, Tlanan Sin Tlali, Nimis Tlasotla, Pamparios, Hikuri Tatewari, Kaimari. Kanin Timitoka Te Karima, Tisi, Nana Ashayaka, Koteo, Tlewitsin. And just give thanks to the Creator for today, for this beautiful sunny day that started off with heavy storm and rain in the morning. I was actually gonna go get some willows to build this sweat lodge in the backyard, and then the truck was gonna get stuck with the mud and all that, so put that off for tomorrow. But just thankful to the Creator for having then a beautiful sunny day with everything going on in the world. Every day been just lighting a fire back here, praying for all the moms. I have one who just mucus plug came out this morning at 4, another one who's with contractions, another one who's like 42 days and 3 days, 42 weeks and 3 days. BPP scores are all 10 out of 10. So just every day, Creator, praying for all the moms right now that are going, quote unquote, post-states. And then with the fire with Tatewari back here, praying for the moms in my care, but also all of the women throughout the world, throughout the country, through each one of our communities. So I'll say a prayer like that towards the West, which in our Mexica tradition is Siwatlampa, is the direction of the warriors, the life givers, the thunder beings, that connection with the water, Xipetotec, the shedding. So just asking for prayers, Creator, to, that all the moms who are giving birth, however they understand it with the support team that they have, whether it's a home birth, hospital birth, birth center, however they are doing it, that it just be the way they want it, that their bodies, mind, spirit all align, and be able to bring our babies, all the babies like that, to our Mother Earth in a beautiful way, aside all the things going on in the world right now and in the country. So yeah, that's always the focus. I just thankful, Creator, for being able to carry this prayer bundle, this as a midwife, as a mother, as a woman of ceremony, danzante, and being able to serve the life givers in my community around my home for now like that. So just thankful to all the elements, always, to the fire, the water, the earth, the wind, for all your guidance and protection. And so aho umeteo umsiwa umetekutli. And then yeah, so I'll go ahead and introduce myself. So I'm Dr. Te Kere Ticitl, homebirth midwife. I'm a mother of 3 boys. They're 13, one will be 7 in a few days, and then 5-year-old. And I'm also the author of 6 different books, health and fitness coach, danzante, ceremonial woman. And that's how I carry myself. I was born and raised in California, in a small little town called Tulare. And my family is originally from Mexico. So we have from the states of what now is known as Jalisco and Zacatecas. So we have that Mexica, Wixárika background, but I didn't grow up with the traditions, I grew up as Xicana, indigenous, and when we talk about white supremacy and how that's affected our lives, I saw it, lived it in our families. It's internalized, as well as institutional and interpersonal. But growing up, that internalized racism really affected my family over so many years of colonization and miseducation, right? So I grew up really under harsh circumstances, and then in the foster care system as a ward of the court. I'm the second oldest out of 8 children. So when I moved to the East Coast in 2005, and then I've been out here 14 years. New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, now New Jersey. So yeah, that's why I say my family were from Mexico, grew up Xicana, and have that Mexica, Wixárika ancestry, although don't speak the language fully or really live that way of life, because we all know, being born in the States, when we go to Mexico or Central South America and are really with our indigenous relatives, that difference. But little by little, we, I always say I didn't have the motherly love to help me become a mother. So that's why I like this first photo on here of the hikuri ceremony. This medicine really found me, came back into my life, and is what's been my mother, my father, my grandmother, my grandfather. So my bloodline right here, if we go back to those states, Jalisco, Zacatecas, and then I did have my great grandma who lived to be very elderly and would always tell us, like, one of you has to pick up, the tradition. She was always into her herbs. She was always into just the natural way of life. And she's like, one of you has to just remember. And I think because of her prayers, the hikuri, this medicine, found me when I was in college at UC Berkeley doing a fast outside of when the Terminator was the governor. I remember that was the first time I had some tea, and ever since then, this medicine's been in my life, and is what has helped me to become a mother, a midwife, is what's guiding my midwifery journey, as well as other medicinal plants that I've mentioned in one of my books, of like, the tobacco, corn, the mushrooms, ayahuasca, cocalis, wachuma, all these strong medicinal plants in my life that are guiding me, that are really my ancestors, like many of us. So it's been that connection that has helped me to just live my life as a mother of 3, as a single mother of 3 boys now, as a midwife, and yeah, I give thanks to this hikuri, to Tatewari, Kayumari, all the teachings behind it, for what's been helping me in everyday life. And then I've been sitting behind the fireplace to the altar for the past 10 years and conducting all-night ceremonies too, for relatives. And it hasn't been easy as a young person, as a woman, but I have a lot of support and elders and guidance behind it, and just really sit there, and we'll sit there. That's my commitment, the prayer bundle for the rest of my life, to be there for life givers, for families, because that's what I really believe in. And life is we have to, honor the plants and give offerings, and just, be them. Like the one of the elders says, be the hikuri, be this. And now what they say, it's the tezcatlipoca, that smoking mirror, a reflection of ourselves. So be that strong vibration, medicine for the heart. And then like that, it goes on to like, be the fire, which is in us, be the earth, which is in us, the wind, the water, like all the elements are in us, so be them. So that's really the lineage, my mothers and fathers, and that I honor and love, because my biological mom crossed over this February 14th, really young. And then also my dad a few years ago. And so both of my biological parents, who I didn't really grow up with in the first place, but I still honor them and am thankful to them for my life, are in the spirit world. And I feel like now through this hikuri too, I'm connected with them, and you know, with all my heart, just and building that relationship with them now in that world around the fireplace, around the medicine, the elements. And now they get to see what I do as a mother, as a midwife. And so that's why I wanted to start off with the hikuri, and how it's a part of birth and all that. I'll talk a little bit more too. But I did want to, this next slide was about this image of Classo. And the original piece is in some museum in Mexico City. She's made out of jade. And I always tell a lot of the moms, I show them this image because I really believe, you know, like, as life givers, we can do it alone. We really can. But I chose to be a midwife, and I really believe that life givers should have that support system. And if we look at these stones throughout the world, there was always, you know, stones in the temples and the pyramids and the walls, whatever, with like the life giver, baby, and a few other people. So nowadays we call that the doula or midwife assistant, the midwife, right? But she's here alone, and I like this image of her because the jade is special to us. They say, you know, I was told when you want to have a baby, to bury that a piece of jade stone in the earth, to ask the, you know, our Mother Earth and Creator for that life that you want to carry. And then her with her mouth open like that is like, when we get into all the studies over the years about pushing with the open glottis or closed glottis, her mouth is slightly open, and it represents that jaguar medicine too. They say, like, to give birth like that with your mouth open, it helps. Many of us have given birth and have tried it, whether we or sing or do, you know, whatever ritual with the mouth slightly open rather than press shut into your chin. It really helps with the pushing and making the birth easier. And then she has also, we always say, like, you know, everything's relaxed. You don't see the forehead all like wrinkled, and the squatting position. So she's really, you know, on my birth altar at home. And she's also the like, for lack of a better word, the deity, or, you know, the guardian of midwives. So Classo is in the Nahuatl tradition, honored by a lot of us in the Danza Mexica world. So I have her here, and then this is another one who I also, for lack of a better word, in English we say prayer, right? But people understand that differently, the way you communicate with the elements, creator, creation, the plants. So Chachi, she's, you know, in the codexes, the books of our people that were burned with the Spanish conquest. So she's in there, and she has also that skirt of jade, which is the water, and the babies, the children, are floating there. So she's also one of the other ones that I, you know, guardians that I was taught by one of my mentors that every time, you know, we as a midwife would take a new mom. I don't know if people call them clients or patients, but I refer to them as my moms. When we take them in our care, like, to always have a prayer, you know, for them, and then especially in the labor, the birth, and then postpartum. So Chachi is one that I'm constantly just asking for whatever's going on in their lives, right, for prayers. And like every day I build a fire out back. Lately, the past 2 weeks, it's been like that. And then put tobacco down or different ofrendas for their lives. And then and if not, then those instant lighter little for the paposhkomi, but to have that fire element there, or a candle. And she's one of the ones that I always call on for help. So that's why I started the prayer with like that, mentioning her, Tlazoteo, Tonantzintli, or Mother Earth. So all of them are really like the way my life has come to be, who I consider my mothers, and ask for help along with the thunder beings, help and guidance, protection. And then that's just a picture of me. I've been doing danza since 2001, actually. So that's why that's where the Mexica traditions come. I've learned around the danza ways a lot on how just to be a mom for mother, sisters and aunts and grandmas, and then different altars everywhere you go, every sweat lodge, every sun dance, moon dance, samblecha, chanupa carrier prayers, like the teepee ceremony, the temascal. It's all so different when you go, like all throughout North and Central South America. So I've just learned, like I remember on the peace and dignity journeys, the prophecy of the eagle or the condor, to always just respect the traditions of where you go. So when you go into someone's home, it's like you respect that way. We're not over there changing their furniture and anything. So then it's like when we go to different ceremonies, respect it. And one of the examples that I could bring up is like the whole idea about medicinal plants in pregnancy and in birth and postpartum, whether that was traditional or not. And I learned, me myself, we were at the peyote gardens when I was pregnant with my second son, Volteo. And I remember we were there a few days, the Comanches, the Yudenays, different people came and had ceremony to honor the medicine, right? Once a year they do these ceremonies, and I was pregnant, so they were like, you can't come in this time. And then I was like, okay. Although like in Mexico with other folks, it's okay. So I just come to understand, like, people have their different ideas behind it, and I'm nobody to question it. And I just learned to respect it. But then we do, follow our ways also, and that's with sometimes a certain group of people. And it's not just about eating the medicines in having that connection in pregnancy and birth. It's other things like water births, eating the placenta, using the obsidian knife to cut the cord, the burning of the cord. There's a lot of different things that, as a ceremonial woman around North Central South America, that I've seen different indigenous peoples, we have different ideas after, 500 something plus years of colonization and miseducation. So it's, I always, when people are like, it's this way or no way, I kind of, for me, I tend to like just reflect and step away from that kind of mentality. But when it's like people share, this is how we do it here, and this is the reason behind it. Then if your heart connects, your body connects, your spirit connects to that, you embrace it, right? You welcome it. So it's something that I've been seeing in life in general, but focusing more with birth, with life givers, with that. And then I'll share about the books I've written. And then I joined Team Beachbody, so I'm a health and fitness coach for the past 2 years in 2018. And I try every day to work out. Sometimes, yeah, I'm at a birth for 12, 15 hours, something, and I still come back and knock it out. Like, I just really believe that our bodies are temples and we have to honor them. When we have that connection with the elements, with our Mother Earth, with the fire, with the water, the wind, like, we have to, you know, honor and have a nice connection to with all the plants, with all the foods, with everything that she gets pregnant with all the time and gives us. So you know, I talk to a lot of people about the workouts are great, but it's, you know, how we eat too. And so that's one of the things that has helped me. I want to be like, I want to live to be 104. And so my grandparents on my father's side are still alive, and they're out in Mexico. They never chose to come to the United States. And, you know, they're just people from the campo, love, you know, have that connection with plants, eating good, staying fit, and so yeah, that's one of the things that I try every day. I think I've been through 6 or 7 different workout programs now, and yeah, even today went for a 3-mile run. So that's that. This is a picture of the temazcal. So, and I have quoted in Spanish, una partera sin temazcal no es partera. So that's from Patricia Gonzalez in her book, The Red Medicine. And I like it. It's like a midwife without a sweat lodge is not a midwife. And I remember reading her book, and when I read that, it really hit my heart, got to my heart, because I really, my 3 sons were born in the sweat lodge on the earth. And I remember, like I said, amongst a lot of our people, there's different ideas, and some were like, that's not traditional, and others were like, that's amazing, that's beautiful, that's powerful, and where'd you get the idea from, you know? And I was just sitting around the fireplace, the peyote, Indigena, Ticitl at ceremonies is where I just remember, you know, being pregnant with my first son, and I was like, it's gonna be, we lived in the 3rd floor in Brooklyn in a small apartment, and I was like, it's gonna be in the temazcal, in the sweat lodge. And this is a style down in Mexico that I've seen with the bricks or adobe, but up here, up north, they're made with the willows, with the saps, and I was like, yeah, like I didn't tell folks for a while, I just kept it to myself, but that's what kept coming, because when I thought about a home birth, I was like, the temazcal, the sweat lodge, that's home for me. And so yeah, all 3 of them have been born there. And then later talking to elders throughout Central South America, you know, some were like, yeah, the temazcal was used for births. The sweat lodge was used for births a long time ago. Not just the sweat lodge, the teepee. When I was in New Zealand, the Maori had their homes too, spiritual homes, that they were always used not just for purification, for ceremonies, for teachings, for healings, you know, but to give life, to just be one there on the earth. And so the temazcal is home. And that's why I was like, this morning, that was the plan, to go get some willows, but with the rain, so we'll go Friday. And then and then I'll talk about later the cierre de caderas, the closing of the hips postpartum. Like sometimes, not always, depending on the life giver and her traditions as well, her culture, her background. But most indigenous women that have birthed with me, they all, you know, in the temazcal, in the sweat lodge, we'll do the closing of the hips in there. So. And others, it's fine, because, you know, they've never been to one, they don't know what it is, so we just do that in their living room, outside, or at a park. So, but the temazcal has a lot of use, not just, you know, for the purification ceremonies, but to give life, and then in our postpartum healings also. So I threw in that picture there. And then here's my my son, the oldest, Ashayaka, y will camina. So he's 13, he'll be 14 this November. And I was 22 years old when I got pregnant with him. And he's just been my little man who has helped me with everything. Like, and his voice just recently changed. 2 months ago, they went to Houston with their grandparents, with their dad, and so we chat, but they're over there. And yeah, his birth was really special. It was 2 days, and I think I called everyone way too early because back then I wasn't a doula, hadn't really been around birth, had not seen a birth ever. Um, and so I remember spending the night. I was living in Brooklyn, and we spent the night with a close friend in the Bronx, because in the South Bronx is where we had a community park, garden, Brook Park. And so we built the sweat lodge just for his birth. And then I was there. The moment I felt contraction, I remember calling my sister to come, and then all kinds of folks in the community just came through, and everyone was like, we had tipi up, sweat lodge there, the songs, people, the water drum, people singing, a mariachi passed by, we brought them over, people would bring tacos. It was like a very big community, 2 days. People would come and go. And then yeah, I remember with him, the midwife I had, she kind of backed out on the whole sweat lodge birth 3 days before his expected due date, guest date. And so I remember calling all these home birth midwives in New York, and they were like, yeah, no, you're doing 3 days, so no. But I am always thankful to Marcy Tardillo, who she was like, yeah, I've been to all these births, never one in the sweat lodge, I'll take you. So she came through and was there with me. But yeah, I remember with his birth, I think it took so long because I was still in my mind, like dealing with all these things, like being a first-time mom, not having that connection with my mother, the sexual abuse I encountered, all these things, right? They like just hit you last minute, and it was like delaying everything is when I think back to it. And then it was raining really hard that day, and I remember at one point Marcy, my midwife, asking if I wanted to transfer, and I was like, yeah, no. And then, but I was like concerned because the wood was running out, and it was November, so out here it was the weather was a little hard, but the men kept the fire really big, lit, and then the last 9 hours I remember being in the sweat lodge. The teepee, everything outside got completely poured on, but in the lodge it was nice and warm. No water came in, and I remember just like thinking about all these things, and afterwards when Marcy, my midwife, checked me, like then I was ready. When it came to the pushing, it was really quick, and then when he crowned, you could hear the water pouring on the lodge. So that's where he got his name from, Ashayaka, which means the face of the water. And then on our Mexica calendar, there is like, it's connected to birth. So based on the time a baby's born, their gender, you can send that to the elders. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Mexica, they call it the Aztec calendar, right? We have 20 days and 4 years, and they kind of put together a whole booklet, and it's kind of like your horoscope, the Mexica way. And so he has like on there, that his element, his companion of day, of night, and there's just so much information there. And then he has his whole life to just study it, to connect with it if he chooses to, right? And then in the back of the book, there was the list of names, because that's one of the reasons to do it, to choose the names that are closer to the time and gender that you're born, connected with the calendar. And Ashayaka was one on there, so it was cool that it like just coincided like that. So yeah, that's Asha's birth was pretty much, yeah, the 2 days, and it was still really beautiful, and I just didn't know any better. Like I would have waited before calling everybody, but the moment I felt something, we all went to Brook Park. But it was cool. It was a community the community really came through. I remember young people trying to jump the fence to come. I want to see the pregnant lady give birth. And we were like, yeah, no, it's not like that. It was just community folks that like I prayer people that we're around with, and so that's how Asha was born in the South Bronx, and then later on, we moved to Queens, and we did have a little backyard, so we built the lodge for Quoteo, my second son. He'll be 7 soon. We built the lodge in the backyard, and so that birth was a lot easier. By then, I had become a doula, and was around a lot of just home births in the community. So his birth was actually everything 8 hours, which was pretty good too. My body had already known what to do, right? So we went and got the willows. Some friends helped us with some too. We put tobacco in every hole and said prayers for his life, where the willows were going, and then all the things, everything was like just set up in advance for him. The lodge was ready for when he would come. He came 4 days before the actual guest date. Asha was born on the due date. And then with him, I had a different midwife because I always wanted to have a different midwife. So I remember Xicana, she was my midwife with him. And she was very hands-off. She let me, I gave birth to him squatting and received him myself. So they were just there supporting me that way. But he was, Koteo translates to the spirit of the eagle. And again, on the Mexica calendar, that's his the name came from there. And yeah, with him, everything was just much smoother, much nicer. We actually had a toilet and running water. We weren't at a park. And then I was in the lodge maybe an hour or less. And stayed a little bit for the birth, and then stayed a little bit longer postpartum, and then just went upstairs to my bed. So with him, I feel having given birth to Asha and then becoming a doula and being around all the home births over the years, it just helped me. And I had already worked through a lot of the hard issues in my life, right? So that's what's called Theo. And then my youngest, who turned 5 in March, Lewitzin, is his name means the hummingbird of the fire, and we still lived at the same home in Forest Hills. So for him, in March, even though it was too spring, it was still snowing. So I remember to build the lodge for him, we had to like dig out all the snow, and our neighbor's house, we have a photo, it's full of snow, and then ours looks all sunny, like it's spring, but it's because we melted all the snow away and built the lodge just for him. And his was even faster, like 3 hours or less. And I remember with him, being in denial. I was a substitute teacher then, and I still wanted to finish off the rest of the subbing I had, but I was at a photo shoot feeling contractions and just didn't say anything. Had on the drive home, had to pull over for one of the strong ones, and then got there and I was still just in denial. But then, yeah, he was coming. That's why he's my little hummingbird of the fire, because he just flew out like that. And everyone made it though. I had Barbara Bechtel as a midwife then. I was her midwife assistant, and she came through as a midwife. I always had the doula, or my sister really, Mary Beth Sally, and then their dad, Rudy Ramirez, was at all of the births. And his brother, Ashayaka, caught him. So that was the cool thing too. Like Barbara was hands off and let him receive his baby brother. So yeah, I think having given birth the other 2 times and then everything again in the community just made everything much smoother, easier for him. So those are my 3 little birds. That's what I call them. I have my hummingbird, my eagle, and my crow. So I always say I've been around births really since giving birth to my oldest, Ashayaka. And So the past 13 years. And then this last year in May, I graduated from midwifery school. I went to SUNY Downstate Medical Center in Brooklyn. I'm a direct entry certified midwife. I don't have a nursing background. The doctor comes with a PhD in education. It's the same program with the CNMs, right? And I started Siwapatli midwifery last November. So for the past 6 months, I've been a home birth midwife. But yeah, just been around the birth world for the past 13, almost 14 years. And I really had more experience with home birth going into midwifery school. But of course, being in midwifery school, it took me 2 years of online prereqs, and the program's 3 years, but I was getting divorced and all that, so I decelerated, and it took me 4 years. So I felt like 6 years in this program, and then I've come to just, I always say, like, my philosophy on birth is that birth is a ceremony, and I respect it that way forever. I'm grateful for everything I learned in midwifery school, Western midwifery, but then also being around, like I said, the ceremony through the teepee and the sweat lodge and the danza, and just meeting other parteras throughout Mexico, Colombia, New Zealand, even England, and throughout the United States. You know, I just see that birth is that natural physiological moment, sacred ceremony. And there's so much to birth from all these worldwide traditions. And then there's what I was taught in midwifery school, which is amazing and great and beautiful and helped me. So I balance both. Like I always say, if one of my sons breaks their bones or something, like, of course, I believe in all our plants and helping them, but I'm going to take them to the doctor. I'm going to take them to get that taken care of. So it's balancing. Like I started talking about the moms that I'm on call for, and I always say, that's why that's the title of my book, My Body, My Birth. It's your body, it's your birth, however you want to do it, but help, guide them through. Birth is natural, birth is ceremony, just let your body do it. But sometimes, for whatever reason, the $1 million question, we don't know why things go that way, and it's that balance with Western medicine and midwifery. So Siwapatli is a Nahuatl word for Siwa means woman, and Patli is medicine. So it's medicine woman, or medicine for the women, and in Nahuatl, I always say, like, there's that masculine feminine duality, because I do try always to be respectful of using the correct words, and I know, like, a lot of people don't want to be called pregnant women anymore. They want to be pregnant people. We say life givers, birth givers. But yeah, Siwapatli, I like that because in indigenous languages, as we know, there's always that duality. And then the medicine is so much medicine in the world. So that was the idea behind that. And the logo, my brother Jorge drew it for me. It has there the corn, is where people, the corn, the hikuri, where people, the hikuri, and the tobacco. Those three are always, the elders taught us, the maracames, wira, our family members, that those plants, medicines, should always be in your home and your altar. That's where we come from. Cerro Quemado, Wirikuta, the creation stories behind that. So that's connected to life, and that's why those are there. And then the half moon, or some people say antlers, or with the fire and water, that balance. And then the moon cycles, how the moon's created to move in the waters. The waters in our womb, all of 52 waters in our body. So that's and then the flower of the hikuri, the tutu right there coming out, like all that, the way I saw it, was created to life, giving life. And then those are the ones, the strong ones in my family, in our lineage, that are guiding, and that's the logo I chose. So yeah, and then Cihuapatli, those are the little ones in the logo, the little flowers right there by the corn. That's also one of the, the plants that I learned from different midwives in Mexico, that it is used in in birth. And so I brought some from Mexico, and I carry a tincture. I give a few drops in water when they're in active labor, and that helps. But Cihuapatli was also used and is used as one of the plants for abortions if you're into that. So it's a strong plant, and I'm honored just to learn more about her. And the research I've been trying to find on Cihuapatli is really from the 1800s, nothing new. So trying to work on an article and get more information, research on Cihuapatli. But yeah, Partera Angelina Martinez, when we went to the parteria this last March 2020 in Mexico, in Jalisco, she also was sharing about how much she loves Cihuapatli, and how as parteras, midwives, birth workers, that connection with the strong plant. Um, and so with her was the teaching, like, you know, make the tincture in, well, they use mezcal. Over here it's hard to find, use vodka. So for the 40 days or 6 weeks, in the mason jar is buried in the earth. And then that's how one of the medicines in my midwifery bag now. And so, and just that's the name I chose for my midwife practice, and shared that on that. So, oh yeah, like the podcast last time was rescheduled to today because she's one of the moms that Ebony Johnson, that started off in labor when we were going to be on the call, and then right after her another mom, and then after her another mom. So it was 3 births in less than 24 hours, and then made it just in time for all of them. It was perfect to Manhattan, and then or the Bronx first, and then Manhattan, and then Long Island, and then all 3 water births. It was just beautiful, and this is a review that she gave me. I don't know why every time I put my website, cihuapatlinc.com, on Instagram or Facebook, it says that it goes against community standards. So I've been putting it on these reviews. I don't know if it's the name or what, but yeah, that's the review from Ebony. And all 3 of these births, this is from Ariel Ramirez and Lolita Hughes in March. So actually 2 of them were water births, and that's another thing that I did want to also talk about, because like I said, like meeting our and talking about with our indigenous peoples throughout the Americas, there's different ideas. So I've been told by indigenous parteras that you know, life givers never really gave birth in the water, that's not that wasn't done, that because babies were in the sacred waters for 10 months, you know, so the first breath of life should be in the air. And then I meet other indigenous parteras somewhere else, and they're like, oh no, yeah, our, you know, Native women, we always gave birth in the water. And there's those cenotes where the waters were, you know, those sacred waters, like, of course. So there's that I find it interesting, right? And yeah, so I do water births, but there's that understanding. You know, some people know why they really want to do it. Others think it's cool. Others here it helps with the pain, with the, or some people call it pain, right? The contractions, birthplace surges. So there's different understandings behind that, but as a midwife, I just come to support. It's your body, it's your birth, how you want it. Many set up the birth pools, and in the moment that it helps them cope with some of the contractions, like the Temazcal, the sweat lodge did for me. That warmth, it really did. Or even going in the shower and letting the water, the hydrotherapy, right? And there's articles on research throughout the years about it. But then there's others who are like, no, you know, like that's just, and that's their belief. So it's very interesting to hear that. But yeah, the moms who want the water births, they can rent the tub. Some choose to just buy their own. They don't want to share the tub, even though everyone gets a new liner. And so yeah, that day, those 3 were all water births. This is the book that the most recent book that I published, My Body, My Birth. And it's a quick read. It's a little less than 100 pages. And I was told, that as a new midwife to have a book, kind of like a business card. So in this book, I write about the sacred medicinal plants in my life, guiding my journey, and then the different traumas that we go through. I remember going to South Dakota with Traditional Doula and Midwifery Arts, the organization that Mary and I co-founded, CoDirect, and meeting Face Validity when she said, as Native people, anytime we start with any discussion, we should always address trauma. And so there's the first chapter here is about plants, and the second chapter is about the traumas in our life. And that's one of the things other midwife mentors have also, talked with me that, and it was talked about in midwifery school too. But it's about how we all carry traumas, right? And then sometimes it's sexual abuse, and sometimes some of the life givers open up, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they're in it still, and then other times they've healed from it, and then but it's one thing to really address and connect with the moms, because then it helps. It really helps throughout the prenatals, and then the day of the birth, and then the recovery or the healing, the treatment postpartum, the womb healings for all of us. Because I remember one of the midwives saying, you every partner you sleep with, at least she was talking about as women and men, there's a web of all that semen, sexual intercourse throughout your life that you have to heal and work on it. And me myself, I'm 36, I'll be 37. I've had 3 sex partners my whole life. My first boyfriend, I was married 11 years, and then my friend, and that's how I've chosen to protect my womb and that energy. And so, I share this openly. I'm open about sharing personal stuff, because when I talk about epistemology, the science of knowledge of how do you know what you know, I know what I know from experience, from life experience, and then it's sometimes really hard for people. I see it's very hurtful, embarrassing. There's different reasons why people put up with it. Politics, money, love, the children, but carrying all that. So the womb healings are really, really important to then be able to carry life and give life in a beautiful way. So there's a chapter on that. There's a chapter on the lost arts of pregnancy and childbirth. And one of the first things I start off is with the Dewari, the fire, because that's one of the teachings I got from an elder too. Is at some point, because historically, before things changed throughout the Americas, there was always a fire connected to birth, and so nowadays it's nice when a relative lights, whether a candle or someone has a big fire. That we had for all 3 of my births, the fire going with the stones in there, and I remember at Qual's birth, it was so quiet during the contractions, I could just hear the fire crackling, and having a grandfather like that just help and guide. So I talk about the importance of having a fire, and we have a candle when we're in the apartments, but sometimes when we're outdoors, we can have big old fire. Chapter 4 is on different the dating pregnancy, the pelvis, group B, common discomforts, all that. Chapter 5 is on indigenous traditional technology, so that's where I get into what I've learned from Panketsani, Ticitl, Indigena, Angelina Martinez, about the bajos, the fajas, the rebosos, sobadas, the temazcal. Um, all that is in there. And then there's, of course, I think with every birth book, there should be birth stories. So there's a few from my friends, and then midwife's words of wisdom from Claire, who Frenzy, who's one of my I've been, mentors, and been just chatting with her about the different moms that I have in my care, and really through her, so I've learned more about the canard and then Marcy Tardillo. And then I have a list of birth keeper questions, so things about how, just questions like how do we present ourselves to births, whether we're doulas or midwives or assistants, like what do we wear? Or, our traditional clothing, from everything from our huipiles to our fajas to the obsidian in our belly button to our chanclas or mocs. Like, what do you wear and why, and the protection? And then what do you do, because when we talk about birth as ceremony, then what do you do before and after them? And then how do you check everything, that invisible bag of what we have going on in our own lives? And so it gets into that. And then chapter 8 is the home birth practice. And so, yeah, I wrote this book, and I say, like, I'm in it for the long haul, so I feel like 50 years from now, because I meet some of these parteras who are 80, 90 years old and still going strong. And I feel like, in the past 13, 14 years, I've learned some stuff about birth. But when I meet these grandmas who are 80, 90 and been doing this their whole lifetime, I'm like, okay, I'll write part 2 to this book then. But it's a lot. So that's a little bit. It's a quick read. My Body, My Birth. Self-published on lulu.com. And then this was my dissertation. I got a PhD in education from the University of Rhode Island College back in 2011, and it's chopped off, but it's free now on Mexica, Aztec Children's Literature from their Stereotypes and Misconceptions. So this was like a content analysis using critical race theory to analyze children's book about my people, the Mexica people. And so I had some focus groups in New York, in Texas, California, Mexico, with children's books, editors, authors, illustrators, danzantes, and then so there's all that's documented in there, and then there's a review of all the books, and then there's a list of the decolonized books, appropriate books, which I think was like 6, and most of them were written by Arturo Mesa Gutierrez. So that was my dissertation that was published. And then this is Blooming Flower Shooting Star. It's about it's a fiction and nonfiction, and it has a mix of my upbringing as well as other, being growing up as a ward of the court, other friends who were in group homes, foster care system, and our stories is between these two girls, Citlali and Flor. One's in college, one's in high school, and they talk and write each other. So that was for like a young adult novel. And then from my dissertation, I got inspired and wrote my own children's book, Boys Can Have Long Hair Too. And that's based on Oteo, my middle son's first story. And if you see, it says y'all see what's seen, because that was, so I feel as Native people, we're not like attached to anything. And I think a lot of people change their names. They do, but just usually the last name. And it's not a big deal, but I chose to change my birth name to Yelsiwatsi, and then that name was given to me by the father of my children. So I felt that was letting go, my divorce, letting go of that name, and then I chose Te Kere Ticitl. Te Kere means Mother Rain, and I chose that name. So, but I was like, I don't know how to change the name on this book. Just leave it. It's part of my history. It's who I am too. Yelsiwatsi means Sacred Warrior Woman. But yeah, I've learned at a young age, when we cut that umbilical cord, it's cut, and that invisible silver line remains. But you know, like from birth, we're taught that, and to not be attached to things. So even everything, like I love my sons with all my heart, and I love, you know, our traditions, and but I'm not attached to any of it. Like not even my names. Like the I always say, you know, running ceremony the past few years, people are always like, well, you know, who gave you the right to carry an eagle whistle or the bald eagle feathers or anahinga feathers, or you know, people question these things, and then it's like, well, I didn't buy it. It just with the fireplace comes all these instruments, and then I don't own them. They're just in my life for a little bit, and I'm not taking care of them. They're really taking care of me and the people. So I just learned that, you know, from I know it could go on and on from a name, but it's like not being attached to anything in life and letting go. And I had to learn that the hard way too. So, and then this is my book, Birth is a Ceremony too. And this one is about specifically the use of hikuri, peyote in pregnancy and birth, postpartum. So there's 18 birth stories. About the medicine, and this is the evolution of traditional doula and midwifery art. So, like I mentioned earlier, my sister, friend, Mary Betzelli, and I, we co-founded, co-directed TDMA back in 2015, and we've gone around New York, New Jersey, Florida, South Dakota, Colombia, Medellin, and teaching workshops on for people who want to become doulas. So this is the book about the first 3 years of that work, and all of those are on Lulu. And then here's my picture of the coach that I talked about earlier. That I really, you know, honor our bodies as temples, and do my best every day to stay fit, especially having 3 boys. Always, yeah, playing basketball, football, staying active with them, all our home cooked meals. Like it's, sometimes they don't eat their food, and I was taught like, you gotta eat everything on the plate. So then sometimes we eat their food so nothing goes to waste. But yeah, like I've always, and all my boys, I'm like, I hope you're all into this whole, I mean, my son, the Asha, he can already do like 15, 20 push-ups just like that. I'm barely at 5, but I love to run. I love the workouts. I love really honoring our body and balancing it that with healthy foods. So I'm always talking about that, encouraging. And I have also ran into people who are like, you know, you talk all this natural, and the critique is that why am I following Team Beachbody and believing in Western values or standards of beauty? And I'm like, it's not even about that. Like our people, we're warrior people. We come from eagle warriors, jaguar warriors. Our people were always fair, had always a connection with the element, with creation, with life. So it's about that. But yeah, I mean, I wish there was like a Danza Mexica workout program, follow that. But some friends are like, we just gotta create it, you know? But so yeah, I between my sons, Danza, lately I've been collecting all this wood and learning all these new tools on how to split it and carrying all these stones. Yesterday we got 52 from this river for the sweat lodge. Like all that stuff is active, you know? So staying active, because especially as a midwife, like I always tell all the birth workers, you know, everyone we come into, like when we're weighing the baby, you don't want your hand shaking on a little 7, 8 pound, 9 pound, or sometimes 10 pounder baby, you know, to be strong. But then also everything we do, like those double hip squeezes, all the bending over. Sometimes they, you know, some moms afterwards, they feel a little dizzy, faint, collapse. You gotta help, like hold someone. So it's like we have to stay strong and fit. And so I'll share that much about that. But yeah, I love it. And always encouraging others to join, but can't make nobody do anything. You gotta want to do it. And then grandmother placenta. that's how I was taught, that the placenta is una abuela, our grandmother. So like I was saying, throughout the Americas, amongst our indigenous relatives, there's different ideas behind that too. I remember meeting some folks and they were like, yeah, no, we don't eat the placenta. That's not traditionally how it was done. That's not an indigenous belief. And you know that the placenta is a grandmother, an ancestor. When they do the silhouettes of them, you can see the face there. And then so there's those ideas and teachings behind it. And then there's the other idea that no, yeah, indigenous peoples, we ate the placenta always. Like I remember Angelina Martinez in Mexico saying like the native women out in the mountains is different than the women in the city. And yeah, right after they just slice it up, chop it up, little steaks and eat it, or like and so some people are into that. They're into the like raw smoothie, just sort of quarter size and with whatever fruit they like, the berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, bananas, their milks, almond milk, whatever they like. And then sometimes even the partner cheers with them. And then sometimes it's cut up like that into a few pieces where it's frozen, and they can do that every day. I have chosen to encapsulate placentas. I've done many, and I, even though me myself, it wasn't in my gut to eat them. We buried them all in the fire. Some people are like, that's not traditional. Others were like, yes, it is. It's beautiful. But that was I remember again sitting in ceremony and asking Grandfather Fire for the guidance of that. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to eat it. I'm going to give it that the Wadi could eat it, the fire ate it. So my three sons' placentas went directly to the fire. And then their belly, the umbilical, when it fell off their belly button, that part was buried in different trees. The sequoias in California. For my oldest, the peyote gardens for my second son, and then my youngest, the Tane Mayuta in New Zealand, buried out there. I also like in reference a lot in my body, my birth, Patricia Gonzalez read medicine about, you know, throughout the Americas, all the different understandings of people who were burying the umbilical or placentas, and where and why, what part of the house, or if you ate it and how to eat it. So lately up here, Jersey, New York, it's the pills, a tincture, and I was told the tincture is good forever. Like we just over here a raw piece, like quarter size with the vodka, and then leave it there for 6 weeks in the cabinet. Once it's ready, a few drops, and they said even up into the menopausal years it could help. Or if you have a daughter, like I mean, a lot of people are into sharing other people's placentas, especially you don't know their medical backgrounds and all that, but within the family sometimes they do. And so yeah, like the tincture, then where it runs low, you just add more vodka. So and then the cord, I've seen a lot of different things. We do the flower shape, spell love, depending on how long it is. My friend, my sister, she makes the dream catchers. There's a lot that's done with it. What is it? Robin Lim has like one of the books on all kinds of things to do with the placenta. And yeah, there is heated debates about whether you should be eating the placenta or not. And I keep going back to your body, your birth, and respecting what the life giver wants, right? That's just what I've been taught, and then I have my own beliefs and how, as many people wanted me to eat my placenta, it was just never in my heart, in my gut, so I chose not to. And I just in all the births, my prayer to Tlazoteo, to be liquid, like this creation, all the elements, it doesn't end until grandmother placenta is out. And that I've heard in Mexico, midwives were like, oh yeah, the longest it stayed in was 8 hours. And it was like, well, because the longest I've had and saw was 4 hours. And everyone that I told, they were just like, are you crazy? Like, you would transfer by an hour. And then in midwifery school, I was taught after 15 minutes, give the MD a heads up. After 30 minutes, maybe something else, and then after an hour they go all in. So it's that too has changed, and it's different because when I talk to home birth midwives from the East Coast, West Coast, wherever, it's different. One mom, it was 4 hours. It was all emotional, and then it just came out. And then others are 5 hours, 6 hours. The longest I've heard is 8 hours. But yeah, the prayer doesn't end till, because sometimes, you know, then baby's born and all the family wants to come out, and then there could be a hemorrhage or something or not. So it's always like the prayer keeps going to the placenta is out. And then the obsidian knife. So this teaching came behind another midwife, Miri from Mexico, and all the knives that I carry, they're made in Mexico. The obsidian, it comes from fire, so that's why we like to have that element present. And it's about bringing back the heat, right, into mom. And so instead of using the cold scissors and plastic clamp, I was told that you know, traditionally it was an obsidian knife, and then you can use any like sterilized string that the deer sinew, buffalo sinew. I remember in New Zealand they used a fiber, or it can just be string sterilized. So what I've learned with easily the obsidian knife is that it's a one-time use, because midwives who have, and it looks like it's not sharp, but if you've ever like touched obsidian, it will cut. So it has a nice sharp pine on top, and all the moms who choose this to cut the umbilical cord with the obsidian knife, they have their own. So I've heard some people try to sterilize it for the next one, and then once you put it in the hot wire, they just break. So, and sometimes it's okay, but yeah. So I talk with all my moms. You know, if they want the scissors and clamp, good. If they want the knife, good. And if they want the burning of the cord, good. Like, or I haven't been to a lotus birth, but one wants or two want that coming up soon. So that's another option. But yeah, the obsidian knife I like also. I carry all the time on me for protection. I was told and have some made that are like a little circle and sliced where it just goes in my belly button, and I always wear a faja to the births. So it's there, nobody can see it, doesn't fall out. It's just for my own protection. I was told by elders to wear a stone, a red faja or any faja, and other people, you know, other people believe it. You don't need anything. You don't need all the fancy jewelry, all that stuff. You just have to be connected with creative elements. So everyone has their own idea, but anytime I do go into a court system or something, I wear my obsidian, because they also say like it's that protection, everything bounces back. It's that escalipoca energy of the reflection, that smoking mirror. So people believe in those vibes. We call them flechas, arrows. They shoot at you, so they just shoot right back. And then, so obsidian has a lot of different uses. There's all kinds. There's the black, there's the red, the gray, the greens. For birth, it's just the black cut after, you know, the delayed cord clamping, and then they get to keep it like a keepsake. So the obsidian is just that simple. It's fire. It was used traditionally, and then it's just another option. So more and more moms are starting to want it. And then the burning of the cord. This I wasn't taught in midwifery school, but I had a mom ask me. So then I had to just look into it and ask a few different midwives, and this one was really special. So my mom, the mom, her mom made the candles for her, and then her husband made the little cedar box, and then so usually I was taught to by Claire that the burning of the cord happens 3 hours after the placenta's been out. Sometimes the parents don't want to wait too long, so I've been doing 1 or 2 hours. But yeah, if they don't have a box, then sometimes it's been any other container. But the idea is baby's on mom, and then the box is in the middle, and the placenta's over here. So it takes about 15, 20 minutes. There's a loud pop at some point. Some people say it smells like barbecue. Not really. And then, yeah, in that, again, it's the representation of the fire. In Robin Lim's book, it's the only book that I found with 2 pages, The Placenta of the Forgotten Chakra, about how that idea that, oh no, you shouldn't do this because too much blood will transfer. Like in her book, she says that doesn't really exist because the vessels will automatically kind of like shut off when enough has gone. But so there's no 15, 20 minutes of burning. There's no way, like it's too much. And then with this, you don't, whereas the obsidian knife or the scissors, you still need either a clamp or string. With the burning, that's it. Then yeah, the cord is long because you kept baby safe over here from the flame, so it's a little longer. So then we've been doing like a knot, and then it dries up by the next day. So yeah, this is once the placenta's out completely, and then wait 2, 3 hours. 3 hours is what Claire taught me. And it's really beautiful because sometimes in this burning of the cord is when I was taught to and like to go around and end every birth with a prayer, regardless of the mom's culture and religion. Like we all, that's why I say some people use that word pray, and we all talk to Creator, and Creator is a different being for everybody, or for a lot of people, you know. So in this, it's really special when you hear moms and then their partners, and then sometimes the grandmother's there, or sister, or a sibling, and then the doula and the assistant and the midwife. So we all go around either once this part is done or during this part, and it's just really special. It's really beautiful. And then like this is when the prayer, at least, because yeah, I've gotten that a routine, to just like keep the prayer in my mind. It's not like I'm praying a lot or anything, but in my mind at every birth, treating birth and respecting birth, honoring birth, the ceremony, and and so it ends after this burning or cutting with the obsidian knife or with the scissors. And then earlier I mentioned the stethoscope, the wooden one, the Pinard. So again, Mama Claire, she, I really appreciate her teachings because I wasn't taught about this one in midwifery school. This one, the first time I saw the Pinard was when I went with Sharon Robinson to New Zealand, and was at a birth center. And then there was one of these. There was a picture of a buffalo, and then the Pinard in front. And I was like, oh, what's this? And then this one was gifted to me by my sister, and I had to practice on my sons, so it was easier hearing their heartbeat and using the stopwatch. But now, like a lot of the prenatal visits, the births, depending on their gestation, right? Like listen first with this, and then count the heartbeats, and then if they're good, they're good. But sometimes the mom wants to hear the heartbeat, so we'll put the Doppler right where the Pinard was, and compare the count. And so I like this stuff. Like I like what was used before the Doppler, and then when I learned from Claire, like, you know, she's like, no Dopplers, no sonograms, no drugs. That's all war. You know, it's like bombing our ancestors, and so there's, you know, those ideas of around this, and then there's like, I just never saw this in the hospitals or in my integration. I, as a student midwife, had 50 births. We see 50 babies in those 10 months, the last 10 months of school. So like I shared earlier, a lot of my birth experience was in home birth before going into midwifery school. It was probably at 40 home births, and then I went to midwifery school and had those 50. So then, and then since I started the midwife practice, 11 babies the past 6 months. So I'm at, and it wasn't until like the home births where I started using the wooden stethoscope. And then here's a picture of the most recent cierre de caderas, the closing of the hips. So yeah, I took a cerrar las caderas online course with Panketsani. And then I remember meeting Angelina Martinez at a Midwifery Today conference a few years ago, and then chose to go this past March to Parteria 2020 in Mexico. But yeah, her teachings were that the rebozo is the center of our heart, and as we extend it, there are arms. And you know, as birth workers, whether you're a midwife, assistant, doula, whatever, you know, there's a lot of terms trying to keep up with everything. It's just, you know, the teaching is we have to be good. We have to, you know, for every so many of these that I do, have one done for myself, and it's like. It's really powerful. We've sometimes it's the full, like I remember when Pakistani did it to me after my third son's birth at Ticitl 5 years ago. Her and my sister Jessie, they came and we had a soup going, and then they filled up the bathtub. I had a herbal bath, and then like the cedar they cleansed me with, and then the bajo, and then the cierre de caderas with the rebozo. This was all indoors. It was just really beautiful, really powerful, and I really believe after every birth, all mothers should have one. And we like to do this the 40 days after, or even into the year after, and then along the mascal, the sweat lodge, where when we're doing them in there, there's been life givers who gave birth 34 years ago and never heard of this, never had it. So then they still get one done, and it's really beautiful. With this one, I posted it the other day on my Instagram, see what I can see, and I was sharing about how they're done, yeah, after we give birth, but also after traumatic events in our life, accidents, divorces, separations, losing babies, stillbirths, miscarriages, like even, and then there's another one for fertility treatment. So there's a lot with the rebozo. Sometimes, you know, they don't have all 7 available, so you can do it with just one, do all 7 points. And then sometimes the bath isn't part or the bajo isn't part. There's always the shares, processing the birth, the womb healing with whoever's in the circle. Sometimes it's just 2 or 3 people. Sometimes it's 20, 30 people. You know, it all varies, but it's really beautiful, and I think really important, especially now in these times because of all the miseducation, colonization, the mistreatment, the rape, the traumas, everything that we carry. It's a lot. So this part helps, especially if we're looking at postpartum care within the United States and how, you know, the death rates on that, or just we always talk about how everyone, you know, enjoys your pregnancy and wants to be at the birth, and then come baby, like where's everyone at? Or, you know, that's the time when you need the most help sometimes. So it's the cierre de caderas is each one, whether they've been like a full day or just 2, 3, 4 hours, like they've been just a lot of just heart to heart shares, a lot of tears, laughter, being like that, connected to the earth, the elements, using the healers, the real medicine people, the real, you know, these fans, these instruments, this medicine, waterbird, eagle feathers, like to help us with our healings, with the teachings, and then your loved ones, your sisters, when the mother's there, the grandmother, like it's just really, really beautiful. And I think I wish every mom had one. And it's nice that these ways are coming back, you know. And then just not, some people don't like to call it like a postpartum closing. They're really stuck on the closing part because they're like, well, I don't want my birth to close. It was not traumatic. It was actually really beautiful, and it's all good whether whatever, however way the birth happened. Like, this is good for just, you know, closing the hips, the bones, because when we give birth, not just the yoni opens, right? Everything opens, so it's bringing back all that warmth, bringing back that energy, and closing. And so, but it's not like a closure where your birth is closed. So then now we've been calling it like a sealing, or I don't know. The English language is a little tricky for us sometimes, right? So, but even this is the postpartum one, but a lot of what happens too over here is the blessing way that folks are starting to call it, and so I remember one of the sisters that Sundance shared with me that actually comes from the Dene tradition, and it's not just one day; it's like a few days. I think she said 9 days, but so we don't, you know, that when people talk about, oh, I'm doing a mother blessing that's Dene or Navajo, I'm just like, yeah, no, like this is something else. So I think folks are starting to call it like a blessing way, or blessing, you know, like the mom, and so that's also done sometimes months, or we like to do it 4 weeks before the guest date, where the life giver comes around with her sisters and loved ones and family. Sometimes the partners are there, sometimes not. Sometimes the men are in the men's circle, and then they come together at the end for food and celebration. And then, and so there's that space where I've seen really, really beautiful mother blessings where we get together, and the one where we set up the birth altar, you know, different things that were given to baby that are special to mom, pictures of her ancestors, her grandmas, her, have the elements present, in whatever way that represents. And I remember one of the last ones where we prayed with the chinpa, then like a month later, that's where the baby was born in the water. And yeah, like those are always really beautiful, because it's like the way you put it out there with the prayers to Creator is how it happens. And then sometimes I've been to some where there's just a lot of letting go. Like I said, all those traumas, all the abuse, the worries, the fears. Some moms write it down, others just speak it out loud into a stone. If they write it down, then they burn it, or it goes to the toilet, or if it goes into the stone, then it goes to the earth. And but it's like letting it out. And some you know, it takes months to write all that stuff down, because as you're going about your day, something new comes up, and then so in there it's special, because there's the heart to heart talks, the words that people don't really like to say advice, you know, but it's like that's for the elders to give us advice. But some people just share good words, and experiences. Try to keep it always positive, no negative birth stories around or hard ones, like unless, you know, she asked for that. But it's beautiful. There's the cornmeal blessing, the massage, and then the water, the foot blessing with the water. Then there's the water that we all put words, positive words around, that she drinks when she's in labor. Then there's a water prayer. Sometimes her mother or grandmother or sister or someone she trusts with her life does that. And so, like, because I'm really big on like prayer, and I always say, I was taught, you know, unless you're an elder or have that other connection with Creator, like, only pray for people who ask you. Because sometimes people are like, oh yeah, I'm praying for you, but they don't really even know your prayer, right? So it's like, then they start praying for all these other things. And so in these mother blessings, postpartum sealings, like it's always, what does the life giver want? And we're there to support that prayer. And then, you know, the mother blessing, sometimes candles are given and everyone lights it the day of, and we're all sending that in, you know, when first wave, surge, contraction, pain, whatever people want to call it, comes and goes, and all connected, supporting that. So I really believe it's powerful, it's beautiful, and more and more people are starting to want them. And yeah, the term, it gets a little bit complicated, but the idea behind it is regardless of your race, class, gender, sexuality, you have that connection. We're all connected to the elements, right? So it's really beautiful to bring that in. And then like I said, like white supremacy is really, it's affected and affecting our lives. So the internalized and interpersonal institutional racism, it's around us. And so it's these ceremonies help us, the mother blessings, the postpartum sealings, the temazcal, the sweat lodge, the teepee, you know, all the plants that we tell moms to drink in labor, in their prenatal journey, the red raspberry, the nettles, the oat straw, the alfalfa, the yellow dog, all that to help us with our blood, which is, our ancestors, to help us to be strong, connected with our people. So it's a lot, but everything it's when the mom wants it, it's beautiful how it all comes together, and every time it's different. Every time, because we're all going through different things in life. So, but it's the same in the sense that the elements and creator, the reboso, those strong medicines, they're there and protecting us and guiding us and just, keeping life going. So that's a little bit about the cierre. And then I have here Tatewari, the fire, one of the fires we had from the teepee, like I always say, sorry if this offends you, because some people are like, upset when they see the fire or the hikuri and whatever, these instruments, because they're so sacred, they shouldn't be. But it's like, my children are so sacred, and sometimes I like to just put a picture of them. So it's like this is what has been guiding my midwifery practice. It's also, I understand the like how the systems of power of white supremacy and patriarchy, capitalism, all that has affected and is affecting our birth, our homes, the world, all the politics, everything going on. It's hard, and I feel like one birth at a time, one mother at a time, one family at a time, at home, or taking it back. And so this hasn't been easy to bring these medicines into birth. Just writing Birth is a Ceremony, that book, it wasn't approved by IRB through midwifery school, so I self-published it. Some people don't understand. They say this is a drug, that it's illegal. But you know what? A lot of our people, this is where we come from. And the earth, she gave us this medicine, and there's creation stories of all the indigenous peoples throughout the Americas with it, and it's really beautiful. And it's, a lot of our relatives are incarcerated for this medicine, have died for this medicine, have made it to where it is legal, but there's rules and regulations and laws in place for that. So I always put the disclaimer in the books, and when I get a phone call, oh, I'm looking for a psychedelic midwife, I'm like, well, I'm not that. I'm not that. And so as much as people interview you to see if you're fit for them, we do the same thing. We don't take everyone either, because this medicine is sacred. The fire is sacred, just like our children. And it's been a part of birth, and sometimes you can't even share this with some people, because they'll put social services, CPS, try to take your children away, try to take, the altar away. So it's about life and death, really, when it comes to birth, when it comes to the medicines, when it comes to our ceremonies, our way of life. and and one mom at a time, one birth at a time. We're slowly taking it all back, and I really believe that there's a strong need for more Indigenous midwives of color, serving our communities. Because yeah, I remember being pregnant. I wish there was a Native midwife out here in the 5 boroughs of New York. But you know, like so yeah, we need more Native birth workers, people that have connection with the elements, with creation, with our way of life, that understand that balance of our ways with Western medicine. Like it's that balance. So that's what I'll share for now.
One thing that I just wanted to speak to was um, I when you spoke, and clearly these years later and 3 births later, of having your midwife walk out on you 3 days prior to your due date, and all because they couldn't honor your birth story. And there's so many elements to that, so many ideas that are placed on families on what they need to have in place in order to have a birth, as well as you know lack of familiarity or lack of comfort or whatever those factors are. But those two extremes that you experienced, of both a midwife stepping fully away from providing the care that they'd come into agreement with you to provide, and then also having people excited to be a part of that because they'd never witnessed a birth in a sweat lodge, and both of those brought me sadness. um, Both of those brought me sadness because um, it's once again that reminder that having a midwife who shares that experience and that tradition and that cultural connection, and not only understands why the lodge is important to you, and will step out of your way of any traditions and cultural requests that you want for your own birth, but also the reality that so many people are inviting in midwives who have no grasp on the power of what the lodge can provide. And so I just wanted to see if you could speak to that a bit.
Yeah, I remember being really upset actually when she had, I don't want to say her name, but she had gone into like something with the twin birth and didn't want anything out of the norm. But I was like, she was like, I'll still be your midwife, but at your apartment on the 3rd floor in Brooklyn, you know? And I was like, yeah, no, the train passes by there and it's so loud. And I was like, this is not my birth plan, my birth vision, right? Using those words. But I was just like, upset, cried, called every home birth midwife I could. No, 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 no. And so then I am grateful to Marcy because she said yes. And it was just straight up her sweat lodge TP was like, well, what is this? And then I remember she was really respectful. The Rudy, the my husband at the time, he blessed her off with the cedar with the fan, and she was just respectful of everything. And actually now I'm like, that's my story. It's on my website in the book about how it was actually the first time ever that it crossed my mind I'm going to be a midwife, because I was like, well, you know what? If I no midwife wants to take me right now because I'm doing 3 days or any day now, then I just do it myself. Like I was like, my sister, my friend Mary at the time was like, it would be me, you, and Rudy, like, and then but she came through, and then I'm like, so that's really what like got me to say for the first time ever, I want to be a midwife. And I have taken moms like that lately. Like, I mean, it's always beautiful and nice where we meet at the beginning of the pregnancy, but especially around these times, like taking moms who only had 1 or 2 visits and then the birth, it is hard. It's hard to, like, everything that I was talking about, to connect, especially like with, if they're connected with either our lovely plants like the red raspberry or strong medicinal plants like peyote, ayahuasca, or whatnot. Like it's hard to, people are always like, well, can I drink ayahuasca? And then I'm just like, no, like it doesn't work that way. Like I'm not gonna come bring you peyote and then we transfer and then we're all in trouble and so it's like I understand like some of these midwives they're like we don't even tell them sometimes what we're doing because like it's just around the native way they don't know it sometimes even better but like and for protection it's really for protection. Nobody wants to get in trouble for having a connection with the plant and or the medicine or the fire and sweat and like we have our child taken away. So it was like a lot of those things that ran through my mind and I was just like, but I always trusted, trusted the elements that everything was going to be okay. And then sometimes when I think back to maybe that's why that first birth was also so long because it was like that shock last minute and all these things, but also all my own personal stuff that I had to let go as a 22-year-old. Because then, yeah, it changed. It really empowered me. I remember at one point when the transfer conversation came up, I was like, no, I'm gonna die here giving birth, or I'm gonna give birth, and we're all gonna live and go home. Like I'm not transferring, and I'm very stubborn like that, and but it's taught me a lot of things that I now like moms. In my heart, I'm like I wish I could take them all, but it's also when we're talking about birth as ceremony, respecting the space for the other ceremonies, the other births, and then our lives and our children and our sacreds at home, our altars at home. So it's that. But yeah, it that really was. I'm sure anyone in my place would be like, "What the fuck?" Like how they gonna, as a midwife, just gonna drop you like three days before, and then but it really changed my whole understanding of birth. And then, yeah, the second and third one, then from 2 days to 8 days to 2 days to 8 hours to 3 hours, everything just got better. And the other midwives came through, and they knew it was sweat lodge all along, and were like, of course, like. All respectful. So, but that's why I say it's important, to find other like native midwives who have that connection. That's been a constant prayer of mine. Is like to be around indigenous midwives, birth workers who are connected to strong medicinal plants, all the herbs, and then the ceremony way of life, whether it's Sundance, Umblecha, Chanupa, the moon dance, the Mascal, the Reboso, like everything. Because um, 500 some years later, we're outnumbered, but little by little, you're seeing more and more. And like I said, there's a lot of controversy around a lot of things, like the lodge and the medicines and the placenta and the cord and everything. But we agree to disagree, and then at least around the native way, there's always that respect, right? So.
There is another question of if you could repeat the info about the flower or plant tincture that you described using in active labor.
Oh, the Sivapatli. Yeah, so I can't even pronounce the English name or the Latin name for it, but if you the Sivapatli, I've only ever seen it in Mexico, and that's where this batch came from. So just like any other tincture, uh, if it's one part of the siwapatli, the 5 parts of vodka or mezcal, whatever you have, and then I bury it in those mason jars in the earth for the 40 days, 6 weeks, and then afterwards take it out and put it in the tinctures. I mean, that's that process, but I don't give it at every birth. I talk with my moms on, I was taught to give it when they're in active labor. So it's full on and it gets the uterus to contract even more. So I've just put like 5 to 8 drops in their water, whatever they're drinking. They like the taste, flavor, and then and every one so far, babies come out. So it's called Siwapati, but I don't know the Latin name. And yeah, that's my next article that I want to work on because It's one that it was always used around birth, but it's kind of been forgotten, or you can't find it out here in North America.
I also, when I spoke with you before, you had some really wonderful thoughts about how living a ceremonial life really helps prepare you for birth in the physical ways and the challenging ways and the the accepting that it's supposed to bring you to an edge so that you can step away from your physical and bring your baby. And so I just wanted to give you some space to speak to that again because I feel like when I spoke with you before, it was just lovely how you worded that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I meet a lot of friends. I'm hesitant to use the word sister now with a lot of women because I learned the hard way. I used to call all these people sisters, and then they're sleeping with my husband in my home and doing all these things around our fireplace altar way. So I've learned the hard way to like not call everyone sister anymore. But so a lot of the ceremonial friends and some of the women that I really consider sisters, I see that when they, are used to like going 5 days with no food or water, 4 nights, no food, water, and or sun dancing, sunrise to sundown, lodges in between, just connected with creator and the elements and all these plants. I've seen like, sometimes births can be 30 minutes, an hour. The shortest I went through was an hour, and the longest was 4 days. So sometimes they can be that way. And we talk about how like moms who aren't used to sacrificing sleep or food or water, you shouldn't in labor and birth. We can eat in labor and birth, but I see that like the ceremonial friends, life givers, the births are always much just smooth and quick and it's just a little different. It's kind of like the way Angelina Martinez says in Mexico, when she was talking about like the native women out in the mountains versus the city women. It's also different. It's because of your connection with how you eat with the land, and then how if someone's ceremonial woman and they really really understand, because we talk about birth as ceremony often, but not a lot of people get that or understand that or want that or see it that way. They're just like yeah, but then others are like, okay, well, what does that really mean, birth as ceremony? And then we get into those details, then I see, like many times, no vaginal exams, no cervical exam, nothing. Like it's just um, they trust their body, they're doing it, and then all of a sudden heads there and baby's coming out. They receive their own baby, like. I feel like I'm just there. Sometimes I always say like I just went to school for a few years and learned some stuff, but I'm just there as another mother, as a friend, as a sister to support them, and they're doing it all. They're the warrior, they're the life giver, and ceremony. When they understand that life is ceremony, it just makes birth the ceremony so much easier. Is what I'm finding, and I don't say this one's better than that one. It's just like some things are just smoother and easier for some people. And I feel and give thanks to our ancestors and the ceremony way of life and all the elders keeping those traditions for us to help us birth our children, to help us feed them, to help us just live in everyday life. Yeah.
One last closing question. How do people order any of the books that you've crafted?
Yeah. The books, they're on lulu.com, but for some reason, My Body, My Birth, yeah, like someone, it's not listed. So that one, if you go to my Instagram, I have Siwakwetli MC for the home births, and then I have my own personal Dr. DC, and the links are there for My Body, My Birth, but also my website. and it's siwapatlimc.com. They're all there.
All right. I think that's all of the questions. And now I just invite you, to say any last parting closing word. I thank you all again.
Ometeo, Spali Yowali, Panawani, Tokinawake, Inistasotla, Atehekatlalitle. Thank you, Creator, for this chat here on this podcast, for having been able to share a little bit. And I do apologize for any, anything I left out or anything I said that was just that makes people sad or anything like that. But it's all coming from a good heart, a good place, and I just really believe in birthless ceremony and want more life givers, all women. I just, feel a little bit more proud and pride when it's our own people. Because we all have that, just like when it's our own family, it goes to a beautiful success. But I really, in my heart, want the best pregnancies, prenatal care, birth ceremony, and postpartum care for all life givers, regardless of race, class, gender, sexuality, to and forever. I was taught to leave offerings, ofrendas, to the elements, to pray for the birth work, to pray for Mother Earth's healing, and to find those sacred sites that represent the uterus, the womb, that's connected to birth. So just more of that, and connecting with birth workers who interest is really to celebrate and honor birthday ceremony as the traditions of a real partera, with the curanderismo, the hueseras, the hierberas, and alongside all the warriors, women, men, children, elders, creation. So thank you, and we'll continue the good work today, tomorrow, the next 50 years in it for the long haul.